Hello everybody, this is AJ from AJ's Signature Swimming Pools. Today we're going to look at doing an Infloor system water valve replacement for the gears. I'm also going to walk you through how an Infloor system works so you guys can see how an Infloor system is supposed to work, this particular type of an Infloor system, this is a swimming pool in Phoenix, Arizona that has an Infloor system. It has an A&A system, which was popular in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s. This particular type of Infloor system is a Style 2 head. The way that the system works are these heads pop up, they rotate around in stations of, let's say, those three, and then the two over there, and they rotate through and they kick the dirt up, and eventually it works its way through the main drain, which is right here. Now, most pools in Arizona, Phoenix in particular, the main drain here is connected underground to the skimmer, which I'm going to show you about right now. So this is your skimmer. This is where the water skims off the surface of the pool. And as you look inside the skimmer, you have a skimmer door right here that allows the water to flow over top, making the surface tension suck any debris into the skimmer. And then you have a basket here. The basket catches the debris. Now, once we remove the basket, you'll notice at the bottom of the skimmer you have what's called a diverter valve. The diverter valve actually diverts the suction from the main drain to the top of the skimmer. If you look at the bottom of the skimmer here, you'll notice there's two holes. The hole on this side goes to the main drain, which is connected at the center of the pool here. You want most of your suction to be on the main drain if you want your Infloor system to work. The hole on the back side here goes to your equipment suction, goes to your pump, so that's where all the suction is. So this is a diverter valve. What this does, it diverts water. It sits in the skimmer this way. This piece here floats inside of here. And if the water drops below the level of the skimmer, it drops down and puts all the suction on the main drain. Now you have a flap at the bottom here that you can close down and can divert more suction to the skimmer or more suction to the main drain. With an Infloor system, you really want about 80% to be in the main drain. So what I have done with this diverter valve, I actually added an additional screw here because these flaps tend to get broken off here over time, because the suction is so great. This way I can keep the suction permanent at 80% on the main drain so that the Infloor system will work properly. So the first thing we want to do when we check an Infloor system, see if it's working, is you can see this head right here. It's right now popped up. And so this one and this one over here are connected. We want to make sure that they are popping up and rotating through different stations. I believe the next station is going to be the steps over here. If they stop rotating, then they're not going to clean the pool. And you can typically see, you can see here very carefully, you have dirt around this side of the head, and you have a little clean V here, where the Infloor system is basically cleaning in one location and it's not pushing the head around it. We'll show you in a different video how those heads pop up and how they rotate around. But right now they're not rotating. And if they're not rotating, they're not going through different stations, so they're not necessarily cleaning. So this is an A&A system. You have your time clock. This is on and off. We're going to shut it off. And then you have a bypass valve. This valve goes to the pool returns, which is on the side of the pool, and then right now that is off. All the water's going to your Infloor system. We're going to change the valve and shut off the Infloor system. We're going to open this up and we're going to replace the gears in this water valve. This is your water valve. It's a 5-port top feed A&A water valve, 1.5 inches. So these are the components that we're going to use to fix this. Here's the water valve. There's a couple of ways that you need to, a couple things you need to do to remove it and access it. There's usually a union here. Some of them have 2 unions with a filter inside of here. if it's a caretaker valve, or sometimes aftermarket valves that people put together, different builders. and then you have this band clamp that goes around here. We have to remove both. Sometimes this union here, you'll need to remove it with a larger pair of channel locks. Don't ever use channel locks to tighten it because you'll split this. Okay, always tighten it only by hand. So you can loosen it up by hand. This band clamp here, we're just going to twist it off. This is what the water valve looks like. You have two gears, one on either side that sit and turn. The water comes in from the top and rotates this fan gear, which then turns all the gears and increases the torque and rotates this entire piece over top of different balls and then down into different pipes, and allows water to go down one of these pipes at a time. And then each pipe is a different station and shoots water up in the heads. So we're going to pull this up. These gears very carefully will come up. You can pull this piece off separately, but be very, very careful. On this center post here, there is a washer. You don't want to lose that washer, because that washer will keep this guy from wearing out. You can see that there's some gears worn down a little bit here. And these washers. Now this type of valve here, they make two kinds of water valves for the top feed. One with balls, which you can't really get anymore, but in my opinion are probably better. And another one is flaps, where they put little flaps in instead of these little balls. The flaps have a tendency to break and sometimes get jammed up. These balls never have a problem. But we're going to see here on these gears, see here, that gear on the very bottom, on the very outside, is all worn down. And so this is how we know it needs to be replaced. I have already reset these gears in different locations, but we're going to just replace the whole set right now. This is the old one, and like I said, it's got that washer. Don't lose it. You want to keep that, even if you're not using it again, especially if you're going to be rebuilding these gears. But this is the little piece. This flips around and spins. This lifts one of those balls up one at a time and allows water down each pipe individually. This is your old gears. I'm going to keep these because we're going to use some of the parts for later, and if I need to do repairs on this system later. So here's your water valve, the new one. It comes with different parts. Of course, it comes with this washer. It comes with this piece for the bottom. This piece will change if you have a flap or a ball system. They're slightly different. That's the only differences between these two. So I'm going to open this up, keep this washer. I'll show you how to install that later. It comes with an O-ring. It goes around the outside. It also comes with some very thin washers that are a thin metal, and I don't know, it's got some sort of plastic coating, but it helps with this sitting flush on here so it doesn't wear any of the plastic out. Okay, so we'll replace those too. And then also many times it will come with this post. Some of these posts here need to be replaced. We're going to look at this post up really close with the camera here in a second to see if it needs to be replaced. If there's worn, it'll wear down on this area here from spinning. And if it's worn down, then you want to replace it. If it's not worn down, you can probably get away without replacing it, because you run the risk of damaging where the post sits into the water valve base. So I'm going to go look at that real quick and see what that looks like. Here, to see what kind of wear there is on this post. See, here is most of the wear. And this little guy right here, see, that's worn down. So that means it makes it harder to lift these balls up to allow water down. So we're going to replace this post. If this was not worn down right here, I think we'd be okay not to replace this. So this post, you can probably either wiggle it out, or you can use a pair of pliers to very carefully wiggle it and twist it out. So that's what we're going to do. So I have the new post and the new washers here. These washers are invaluable. Keep those too if you can, if you plan on making these replacements later. All right, so you should be able to just wiggle this out. And if you can't wiggle it out, don't force it. Don't bend it, because you will split this piece of plastic. This is just, the base is only a plastic, and it's a really rigid plastic, so it breaks really easily. So I'll pull these out here so you can see it's just set in the plastic. So we're going to try and get this post out. The post didn't come out very easily. This post didn't come out by hand easily. So, and you can see where it's worn. I'm going to do just a pair of channel locks and try and twist it. And twist it and pull straight up. And just keep doing that. You can see it's coming out slowly. You can see all the wear and tear on the bottom of this. That could be one of the reasons that it's having an issue. And so that's this piece here. You can see how much debris is worn into that. So the new post is going to go in here too, just like this. Go straight in, tap it, tap, tap. Don't tap it too hard. It'll have a different feel when it seats completely. And then we're going to take those two washers, they're going to go in here too, underneath all of the balls. Alright, so you might be able to move the balls out of the way. And the next part we're going to do is we're going to put the entire piece in here and seat that. So that's the next thing. So we're going to put this little washer here. This little washer is going to go on the top, because this washer has to separate the two plastic pieces that are going to go here over top of that post. If you don't have the washer, this little plastic piece here will wear down completely. So this is what we're going to do. The best way to do that is to put a screwdriver in the bottom and post all the way up like so. Then I'm going to take this washer and put this washer on top of it and just angle it down in between the gears until it sits right over top of that hole. Then I'm going to switch the screwdriver and put in from the top, so that now I can feed this down over top of the post, which we're going to show you. So now we're going to put this water valve over top of this post and these two new washers that are already here. I'm going to, at this point, pull the screwdriver up so that I can see where this post is, and then put it in very carefully, and then allow that washer to sit. And then now we have to find a way to seat this little guy into these gears. These gears need to be in the gear seated that way. So I'm going to get a special type of screwdriver. It's a little bit longer screwdriver and a thin screwdriver for me to do that. So now what we're going to do, I'm going to pull this up again so you guys can see how the bottom of this sits. This piece right here lifts up the balls. So I need to know where that's at and lift up the ball in front of this so that this can sit flush on the bottom. So we'll put this back down again. Very careful. Use a screwdriver to hold the O-ring or the washer in place if you need be. And then know where that ball is at. You got to get a screwdriver in there. I don't know if you can get a camera of this. Let me lift in the ball inside of there and then rotate it around with the ball up until it sits flush. And then it will sit down all the way, and then you keep rotating it, and you should be able to rotate this all the way around pretty freely where it's into all the gears. That's how it should be rotating in the system here. So here's the ball. I don't know if you can see this here or not. I'm going to take this ball and I reach in and pull it up like that. You can see that, and then rotate this whole piece around until that ball sits on top of the part that lifts it up. Lift the ball up until it sits flush. and then it will sit down all the way, and then you keep rotating it, and you should be able to rotate this all the way around pretty freely where it's into all the gears. That's how it should be rotating in the system here. But see, once you get this seated, it's also important that you make sure that these gears are properly seated. Like this one right here is not seated all the way down. See, this gear is higher up than those gears, so you need to make sure that seats down. That's why I also recommend to kind of spin this whole thing, pushing down slightly while you spin it to make sure it is seated completely downward. That's how it should be rotating in the system here. And then this fan piece, make sure there's free of debris. A single piece of stone or single rock or grit will jam this little plastic up, because these are only plastic gears. This sits also inside, and make sure that that spins and make sure all those gears turn. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to replace this O-ring on the outside here. So I'll be right back with an O-ring. All right, the O-ring goes on here pretty easily. And that also, it's a good idea, wipe the inside off. I usually use a rag, but you can wipe off the inside here, making sure that there's no issues. Sometimes there is a little post and a little hole set up on some of these models. If you do have that, make sure you make note that that hole goes in that hole and this post goes in that hole. This particular one does not have it. So you don't have to worry about it on this model, but some of the other models of the other Infloor systems have to be lined up just so. So when we do this, if you look at this here, this water comes in from the top down, it comes through this area and spins out, which causes this gear to spin, which turns these water valves. So we're going to put this all back together now. Everything is seated properly. We're going to sit this in. This post goes in this hole right here. So this post goes in this hole. You should be able to feel it seat properly. Another thing to also make sure you lubricate this O-ring on this union here. And if you have a hard time turning this union, sometimes I put the lube on the outside. Somebody had put some Teflon tape here. I'm not a big fan of that, but if you put the lube on the grooves, it helps turn it a little bit easier. All right, so we're gonna set this in, and you have to jiggle it around until it sits firmly. There it is, it's firmly. You line this baby up top here. I will put this band clamp back on, and it just kind of reaches in and pulls tight, and I will grab these two pieces together and squeeze them, and then twist this at least to the point where it's snug. I'm not going to tighten it all the way yet, because what I want to do is I want to tighten this union first, and then we'll come back and we'll tighten this all the rest of the way, because we want a little bit of room to play with this so that this lines up properly. We're going to put the union on, make sure this is lined up, make sure the O-ring inside has been lubricated. Only hand tighten this. If you have a leak, then you need to probably check the O-ring, replace the O-ring. Another reason I like to say keep this thing slightly loose is we want to make sure that it does not get cross-threaded. Okay, so I'll use it with one hand to tighten it all the way, and I'll use two hands and then the palms of my hands to tighten that. That should be sufficient so that it doesn't leak. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come back, we're going to tighten this band clamp. Not too tight. Sometimes this handle is broken and you might have like a 7/16 nut in place of this hand tighten clamp. I tap this outside with a screwdriver or something all the way around it. That helps seat this evenly. And then you'll notice that this needs to be tightened a little bit more. And then just a little bit all the way around. Just tap it, making sure that it's evenly tight all the way around as we continuously tighten this up. Once you hear that sound, or it's, you don't want to over tighten it, okay? Not even hand tight all the way. And then that should do it. Now we're going to turn this whole system on over here with your time clock. This is an old style time clock. This is how you turn it on. We're going to open up the valve to the water valve, and we're going to see if it rotates through. We're going to open it up slowly, allow the air to bleed out of the system. Now I'm going to check for leaks. Make sure that there's no leaks here. You can feel it with your hand. No water leaks. Make sure there's no leaks around here. Make sure it's not dripping. That's good. This particular pool. has a little bit of a leak in the Jandy valve right here, which we're going to address in another video. But for now, there's no leaks here, we're good. And we're gonna go take the camera over to see if it rotates. Okay, this station is up here now. The next station is running. It's gonna be these here. All right, so here you see the station, you see the pop-ups on the heads, on the bench. It's gone down. These are connected here. These are the next stations. I will make sure that the entire system rotates through once completely before I am sure that this is actually working.